But yeah, this month we played Gato Roboto. That was Jared's pick. Jared, what made you pick this game? I am genuinely curious.
I tried to scour every inch of GamePass to find a game you and Eric didn't play, and immediately Eric said he beat it as soon as I announced it.
Yeah, well, good attempt. Good attempt.
You should know better. A game with a cat in a mech, like you should know, Jared. That
Honestly,
I would play.
I didn't even look at what the game was. I looked at the little thumbnail of it, and I was like, "That looks like it's interesting. Let's choose that one."
So, starting off with the story, we have Gary and his cat Kiki flying through space, and they find a distress call from an alien planet. While flying towards it, Kiki steps on the ship's keyboard, causing the ship to crash land. Both survive, but Gary gets trapped inside the wrecked ship, leaving Kiki to explore the planet and find a way to get off of it. That's really the basic premise from the story, and honestly, the story ended up going a little darker than I expected it to, but overall, I was thoroughly happy with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
simple, but I was impressed.
Yeah, and it was honestly, as I say, never lost interest in what was happening. Like I find sometimes you just kind of start not caring about the game story and just focus on, oh, this is a fun gameplay, but
Autopilot
whatever.
mode.
Yeah, exactly. I never found that. I always got a good chuckle out of everything that was being said.
Yeah, and actually, like I kind of realized once I was going back and looking at gameplay and stuff that like the dialogue, it made it easy to keep up with what was going on in the game and like the progress throughout it. You know, the game doesn't have any like objective symbol or like tell you what necessarily you're doing in like a little screen, but I never felt lost in the game at any time, which is I always appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they didn't really tell you a lot either. It's like the game has started. Go.
They'll give you like a quick little like this button does this move when you find a new thing, like when you find rockets and when you find the double jump or whatever, which the double jump almost was more of a pain in the ass for me than it was a good thing.
So you had a little bit of difficulty at times, Jared?
Yeah, so the thing is more with my dumb fucking primitive gaming abilities, but I kept like this. So with the shooting, it's based on the left analog stick as well as move. Move is also based on the left analog stick, right? So or whatever system you're playing it on. Anyway, so to aim like that was fine. You know what? It took getting used to. There's some frustrating moments, but I got used to it. Then they incorporated the double jump. And I'd keep accidentally fucking touching it when there was a one boss fight in the furnace room where the guy was under the lava. It took me too long. Like I finally beat it, but I don't know. I found it pretty good. Like that was the only one that I complained about. But that's more of a user issue than it is a gameplay combat issue.
Yeah, honestly, I found the controls.
Yeah, I had no problem with the double jump.
I thought the controls were very tight and satisfying overall, which is key for a game like this.
The gameplay itself was fun. Like I liked the progression. I liked the challenges. I liked how they started to I like how you had to constantly go through areas. So you'd always get better at going through that area. You could always kind of, and each time you got the ability, it was a noticeable improvement in certain areas. Like you're like, wow, if I had this ability way before, I could have blasted through some of these areas. Especially when you got to when you got the triple rocket upgrade or whatever, where you could fire 3 rockets instead of 2, that was actually a decent game changer for a lot of the smaller bosses I found.
It really did. It's a classic Metroid formula where you start off weak and then you slowly get more and more powerful until you're just a god. And yeah, the game being short as well really added to that building level of strength, I feel.
I think the game's length really lended itself to as like a strength. Because you just get in, get out. There's no wasting your time in the game.
Well, the only thing I can
time throughout
is there was a few instances, not so much with the last boss battle, but with other ones, you would die and you'd get in and be like, oh, it's you, story, blah 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 blah, and you would have to go through that every time. You could skip it and spam.
Yeah, that pissed me off too. I wish they did it the one time, and then after that it would just start the boss fight right away. It was a small annoyance, but it was an annoyance nonetheless.
Outside the boss battles, because I would say those were definitely the biggest difficulty spikes. Would you guys consider the game difficult?
I'm not the best platform gamer in the world, and I didn't find it too bad. Like I'm usually, I mean I don't know how super that's not super platformy, I don't think, for a game like that, but I didn't find it overly difficult. They made it simplistic enough to be enjoyable, especially since they didn't give you a difficulty gauge that you could like pick. So I felt like they made it so that even if you aren't super great at those games, there's an easy enough learning curve through it that it wasn't it didn't require you to be like the best platform gamer to beat it.
It actually reminded me a lot of a very simplistic Hollow Knight.
I mean, that's pretty much what it is. Hollow Knight's pretty much a Metroidvania, and this is just, I'd say it's kind of more paying homage to the original Metroid and just like the simplicity of it.
One thing that kind of stood out to me with like the game design, the puzzles were like how they're all built around like just getting in and out of your suit. Like to compare it to like a traditional Zelda game where like, you know, you go in a dungeon, you get a new item, and you use that item to like progress. You need that item because that's the mechanic. But like Gato Roboto just used the bones of its gameplay, like the hot vents, the hot level, or the vents where you either could leave your suit or couldn't. Like you don't need to like learn new things or figure anything out. It's more polishing what you already have. So I think that ended up being a strength for me.
I actually really enjoyed that part because I found that it was cool how they didn't really tell you, like they mentioned it once. They said at the beginning like, oh, I don't think you should get out of your suit, it's a little bit hot here. And the only visual cue that it was too hot was the rippling they were making in the game design. And it was like I didn't even have to think about it until like after when I thought back on it, was like I literally just used that visual cue to be like, oh, I can get out of my my robot now. I didn't even think about it. I was like, I'm still in the furnace room.
The best part about being out of the mech was the press X to meow button.
Yep, very true.
Like anytime I was out of the cat, I was just spamming X the whole time, making a little bastard meow.
This is a nice little like sit down one session kind of game.
Yeah, we mentioned this with like it not being a long game, but one thing I appreciated is that there was like very little to no backtracking. It easily could have like stretched out its length by making us backtrack, and that's what a lot of Metroid games do. But it was nice not to see it here.
I didn't even think about that because I was like going back to maps. I pay attention because I said this to Peter. I was like, I took longer than the 3 hours that was average completion rate on that game. Because you guys know me, like when it comes to maps and stuff, I hate having things not done on my maps. That's why open world games are the bane of my fucking existence because they take so long for me to do. But I did I think there's a few areas I didn't bother going back to, just how far I had to go back to get to them because I missed them to begin with. But overall, like, I found that they progressed in such a way that, the backtracking didn't happen. And I hate backtracking a ton. I don't mind once in a while, but I hate when I have to constantly go back to an area repetitively.
100%. All right, well, let's move on to the graphics and visuals. With this being a monochromatic game, it definitely is unique. So what did you guys think?
Cute.
It reminded me of the comments in it were kind of like comic booky, like, you know, in the newspaper when you'd see those black and white comic strips in the comics section. That's literally what it reminded me of going through the game. I found that the designs were like, usually, honestly, color plays a lot of role in like bringing characters to life or like bringing them out of the screen. I found with the way they comedically and designed a lot of the enemies and and your character and the mechs and all that stuff, I found it was really it brought itself out without having to have color there. Like they did an excellent job designing the overall outlook of the game to make it fun and interesting.
Had a lot of character.
Yeah, exactly, without being bland.
One thing I was worried about going into the game is that like if the enemies and stuff would kind of all blend into like the environment, just, you know, because it's black and white. But I didn't experience that at all. I was quite impressed and happy with that.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree.
Everything's visually distinctive, despite like it just being two colors. Mm-hmm. And I know you guys didn't use the cartridges much, but I like to switch between them. And some of them, if you're playing like at night, it would be like just a fucking flashbang has gone off or something, because they would just be so blinding if you had like this bright green mixed with the black and it's like dark in your room or something.
You can change the colors of the world?
That's what the cartridges do.
Yeah.
Oh!
I stuck with 3.
I didn't know what they did.
It would change it when you got it, though. It would be like it would briefly flash.
No, that's what that was.
I didn't know what that was. I thought it was just like, oh, I collected a certain amount of cartridges, I get a new color blast.
Boys.
I always thought it was just like a weird thing in the game. I'm like, oh, okay, that's strange.
It's like the only collectible.
Just Gordon and I both of us. Oh.
But I whenever I got a new one, I'd try it out. Ultimately, I just stayed on the standard one because I just felt that looked the best. But I appreciate having the
I like the
option.
references to like classic stuff. Like there was a Tamagotchi one. There's a Virtual Boy one.
Urine was my favorite.
There's a Meowtrix one. Urine. It was nice to be able to switch it up.
In a game like that where it can't do much, I appreciate that they still gave us something.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I'm normally not a big fan of games that are like, within a box on your screen. But I actually did like it into this game. There was a lot of detail put into it if you really pay attention with it, like moving around when you got hit and all sorts of stuff like that. And it, went along with being in a mech. I don't know if you guys noticed, but like
whenever you're probably just gonna say whenever he's shooting or jumping, the cat's face changes.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
When you're shooting, he makes like an angry face, and then when he's jumping, he's like smiling and he's like, yeah, it's cute.
Little details.
I like it. I want there to be another. I want to see Kiki and Barkley return.
They did that with some of the enemies too. Like when the little torpedo fish saw you, it'd get like the scrunched up face and it'd be like, I'm gonna come get you. And then there's a few other enemies that did that as well.
All right.
There's one animation that I have to just point out real quick that I very much appreciate it. It's at the very beginning of the game where Kiki first sees water and is all scared of it, and it's like got the like kitty hunchback and like ears back, and I think that's like one of the only times you see that animation, and it's very cute. I like it.
It honestly wasn't anything
The audio was
special.
cool.
I like hardly paid attention to it. After like I played like 20 minutes, and I was like, okay, this is all the same. And I just kind of put one headphone in, and I put some YouTube or some podcast off to the side while I played. But the ending boss fight music was awesome.
Yeah, they definitely use music to kind of direct you in the way that you're supposed to feel about the situation and the emotion that you're supposed to grab from it, which is really good. I found that like you grading a lot of the stuff in between it was cool at first, then I kind of was just like it's just repetitive a little bit.
Yeah.
But the boss fight musics, I'd say for almost all of them, were really decent boss fight music.
I'd say even just the exploring music was good at like setting the atmosphere and just accompanying you as you go from point A to point B. Like, it was very subtle, but none of it was ever bad, I would say.
Yeah, I pretty much wrote the exact same thing. Like, the music didn't feel too present outside of boss battles, but it 100% added to the atmosphere. Clearly, there's Metroid inspiration behind the music, which totally makes sense, but it was definitely not something you're like jamming out to while exploring.
And then for sound effects, like the rest of the audio, it's sufficient. Like there's nothing to complain about. There's no sound that I was like, oh, what the fuck? It was all just good old classic retro style type sounds of pew pew pews and meowing.
Yeah,
I like the meow and the barks. Those are good.
It was not. I wrote it as nothing revolutionary, but I appreciated it, and it definitely fit the game.
Yeah, it did. It did its job as what it's supposed to do.
Yeah,
and then you got the classic like audio stuff of like,
yeah,
whenever you're talking to Gary or the doctor or whatever.
Yeah, again, I felt like that Banjo-Kazooie style definitely fit the light nature story and stuff. All right, well, let's wrap up with some overall thoughts. Personally, I thought, yeah, it was a fun little game with its own personality. I don't think I'll return to it necessarily, but I think it's a perfect Game Pass game. If you're wanting to play a Metroid-like game, definitely would recommend it. It's short, it's sweet, it'll give you exactly what you want.
I can agree with that. It's a game that, like you said, short and sweet, fun to play. You don't have to think about too much, but it's enjoyable while you're going through. I would potentially revisit this if I were like just sitting around one day and I didn't really know what I wanted to play and I just wanted to, like a podcast game essentially.
I mean, I've played the game a couple times already, and I probably would return to it at least once more just to mop up the last achievement for beat the game in under an hour if I can. So
Whew.
I don't know. If you're an achievement hunter, it's still even a worthy game. Like nothing's too difficult. You probably have to go through maybe 3 times through the game to get all the achievements, and that's like 5 to 6 hours if you're that type of gamer.
Easy. If you're that
That's
type
what you
of
want
gamer,
out of
then
your
that's
Game Pass stuff.
if you're a type of gamer to do the
Yeah,
achievement stuff, then that's easy money. I'm happy you picked Gato Roboto because I probably wouldn't have played it otherwise.
Yeah, I don't think I
agree.
would have either. I'm kind of with you
I
though,
was
Peter.
happy to return to it.
I would highly recommend it for someone, even if you're not a Metroid kind of gamer or platformer at all. I'd still recommend it just as like a fun game. But I probably won't return to it. I enjoyed it for what it was, for sure. It was a very enjoyable. I think I took like three and a bit hours to get through it, but it was a really enjoyable game.
Well, thanks for tuning in to this episode of FairShare. We hope you played Gato Roboto, and we hope you tune in on tomorrow to check out what we're going to be playing next month. Ooh, we hinted to it earlier, but you'll find out tomorrow. Make sure to tune in then. Check out the YouTube channel. Check out our Discord. Check out, all that stuff down below. You guys know the
Twitch.
drill. Yeah, thank
We're
you, Jared.
streamers.
Thank you, Jared. You get one cookie.
I've been an
We'll get there.
OnlyFans
We'll get
member
there.
of Peter's for over 6 years now, and it's worth it.
Wow, I was so ahead of the curve. Holy shit.
No kidding.
All right, the people aren't here for my OnlyFans. Let's stop this. Okay, goodbye. Guys.
Goodbye.
See you guys
Yeah.
next time.